Hello, I'm Denton Davidson, senior editor for Gold Derby. Ken Olin is a four-time Emmy nominee for producing This Is Us, but he's got an incredible history in television, including shows like 30 Something, Freaks and Geeks, The West Wing, Alias. Ken, you were tasked with directing the first episode of the final season, titled The Challenger. How important was that for you to set the tone for what you already knew was going to be the final season of this beloved show?
Uh, I mean, I think always doing the first episode of a season is, I mean, there's multiple tasks. I don't think about it so much as setting up the final season as much as, okay, we have to get back on track. I mean, people have had a few months off. Everybody is just trying to get back into the just sort of the shape you need to be in, to do the show. I mean, we do 18 episodes a season, so I think that more than anything. And we were dealing with the COVID still, and so all of that was, I think, just part of that went into doing that first episode. We also started late because we had gone so late due to the COVID delays. So there had been a pretty significant break. So part of it was just getting up and running. Every season, our first episode, Dan would write, Fogelman. So, they're always really special. He's the voice of the show and created the show. And so his episodes are always, really, I mean, they're great to do. But I didn't really approach it. There's nothing, I don't believe there was anything stylistically. Every year we would have a discussion about, is there anything we should change? Is there anything in terms of the template we want to adjust? And we would talk through a couple of things, Dan and I, and then we go, nah, not really. I just, except every year we seem to have more kids. There were just more children, a lot more children. And so this year, by the end, you'll see that we just finished shooting the last two episodes, which I directed. And I think we ended up with 17 or 18 family members in a living room.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot. So the show sort of kept expanding that way, but there wasn't really anything different about the way we approached the beginning of this season.
How do you decide which episodes that you want to direct? Because I spoke with Chris Sullivan and earlier, and he said, he got to direct for the first time one of the episodes, and I asked, how did you decide which one you got to direct? And he said, "Oh, I'm told what one I get to
Yeah, you know what? I mean, I always direct the first one of the season and the last one of the season.
Okay.
And that's been the case. That was the case all 6 years. And then, it depends. I don't decide. I don't go and say, and unlike what Mimi Leader was saying about being in the room and knowing what the episodes are and then having some sense of that. I mean, we're operating at a pretty quick pace, so that maybe the first 6 or 7 episodes are broken when we start prepping to do the first episode. Usually what happens is Dan has a sense of when we're going to go into some sort of mid-season break, and usually those are episodes that have a little more pressure on them. I would do. Sometimes there would be a discussion, because I one season I directed 7 episodes, which is a lot. That would mostly be a discussion of where Dan really felt it important that I direct, and then also what could I handle, just the amount, the number. And this season, a lot of it went into, we were giving a number of members of the cast opportunities to direct, and some other people that had been with the show forever. were getting opportunities. So it was all a little bit of a puzzle to figure out where people would fit the best. But I never had the, and it probably wouldn't have been appropriate to say, well, no, I want to direct this person's episode and I don't want to direct this person's episode. It didn't work. I directed, I would pretty much always direct. If Dan wrote an episode, then I would be the person that would direct that episode. That was just, I think, just something that he wanted, because we have a shorthand, and there was I understood also what his process was.
And multiple cast members were able to direct, as you've noted. That's sort of how you started from 30 something, right?
Yeah.
Did that completely change your trajectory of, like, you were like, okay, I'm all in on directing?
Yeah.
Did you sort of fall in love with it in that way?
I directed once in college, and I loved it, but it was so, I never experienced anything that was that consuming to me. I don't know. I mean, I just was so just completely passionate and consumed by directing. With, I didn't have any craft. I read Harold Clurman's book on directing, but I think it exhausted me, like, in a way that was a little scary. And I thought I was going to be an actor, and I thought of myself as an actor. And it wasn't really until 30 something that I said, well, I'd like an opportunity to direct. I think that I knew right away when I was directing, that I felt more suited to being a director than an actor. I was much more, there was a way I felt released by directing. I didn't feel self-conscious in the same way. I think I always felt a little self-conscious as an actor. And I think the really great actors, there's something for them that is, it's liberating. And as hard as great actors work, and I think they work really hard, there's something that for them just flows easily. And I never had that experience. I don't know that I loved acting in the same way that I just loved directing. And my wife was she was very, very supportive of it too, because, to make that transition at that time was complicated, just financially and all sorts of things. But I was just and I've always just been much, much more at home directing. I always feel just a little like I'm worried about things I shouldn't be worried about when I'm acting. And, and I have to say, I still, which is a pretty good indicator, like, I'm still so amazed by good acting. I get so, like, I get so happy when I see somebody do something, and there's something just mystical about it. Like, how does somebody do that? So, that's another reason why I'm much happier directing.
Gold Derby recently published a list of the most beloved TV families of all time, which the Pearsons are featured on, of course. This isn't the first popular family show you've been a part of, but what was it like to be part of a phenomenon, this particular one, and that's so beloved, but also really kept the torch burning for acclaimed television on network TV?
Yeah, that was amazing. I didn't anticipate that, because, I have done a few. 30 something was sort of that. Brothers and Sisters was that. And I came from a place of going, okay, I love doing this, but these aren't the shows that are, 30 something was zeitgeisty and had its own aspect that was a phenomenon. So, but being inside that was different, and I was much younger. This was like, I've never been on a #1 show before. Like, that's wild. To be on something that was such a massive success and was not in the genre, in a genre that up until that point, for many years, up until that point, was not considered like, this is the I mean, I was coming from a place of like, well, your shows have to make a lot of noise, and going, wow, this family drama is gonna, and they sent me the show, and did I want to do it? And I was like, yeah, this is really, really good. I never thought that this was going to be this. I mean, it was sort of sensational, and which was just so interesting. I mean, I think part of it was really, really good. It was really had an authentic voice. And also it came along at a time where I think people were they were so hungry for something that really had at its core a humanity and a kindness and decency, and like the wish fulfillment of it wasn't that, okay, this person can, knock down buildings by hitting them. The wish fulfillment was, wow, there is such a thing as unconditional love, and in all its complexities. And that was kind of amazing, and it was such a great antidote to what was going on politically in the country. So it was an amazing experience. And, I think one of the things that was also wonderful about it was that the experience the audience had of the show was not different than the experience we were having making it. It was an incredibly close, respectful, decent, loving environment, and I mean, that's kind of an amazing thing altogether, to have that. That doesn't come along very often.
Well, Ken Olin, congratulations on everything, and thanks for
Thank you.
speaking with Gold Derby today about This Is Us on
Thank
NBC,
you.
and best of luck at the Emmys this year.
Okay, thank you very much.